gargantuan, spewing out thick and tall columns of black, shiny oil, and car parts, and oil was dripping like all around me. That was my sex. It was like, just oil. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay, I had to start jacking off again.
Welcome back. We are here with Dr. Mike Israetel. I couldn't possibly turn down an opportunity to talk to the professor himself about wanking. And actually, it's a pinnacle moment for all of our careers. So, Mike, what a treat to have you on to discuss this very important topic.
Guys, thanks for having me on, first of all. Always a pleasure. Huge fangirl moment. I love you guys' stuff on Instagram, and both mimetically insightful and informative.
I very much appreciate that. I guess just to give the listeners some background on this, of why this is topical at the moment, we posted a video about this. There's kind of an internet movement, not just the Nofap community, but also it's the kind of self-improvement, bodybuilding, entrepreneur, hustle culture community as well, that's gained traction recently. And it's the world of biohacking claiming that there are multi-system significant benefits to refraining from bashing the bishop, jerking the gherkin, or fastening the chin strap on the helmet of love. Ooh. And I think we are relatively all aligned on this, and just want to give a kind of a counter perspective of this. And really the crux is that we want to get further upstream of, is there a specific spiritual or physiological benefit to semen retention? And maybe it's about just going from pathological state to non-pathological state that is explaining some of these benefits. And if you haven't witnessed the Nofap community, generally it's talking about people who say like, oh, okay, I'm on day 17 and women are approaching me out of nowhere and I've gained an inch on my biceps and I'm way more productive and all this kind of stuff. And it does just come down to a lot of the historical momentum that's vilified sex and all that stuff. So I think there's a puritanical hangover to it, but we would love to hear some of this perspective from you, Mike. So welcome aboard to the wank train.
Oof, that is very sexual.
So the in cellular kind of basement dwelling archetype, I suppose, is the same group of people who are most vulnerable to the kind of incel and nofap message, which is like it very much polarizes, it creates this kind of binary magic pill type solution to something, and depending on the flavor of it, it could be cold showers or it could be sunning your bumhole or whatever. But
my personal favorite.
Oh yeah, me too, to be honest. I'm still not out of that particular rabbit hole.
It's not a fad, it's a lifestyle.
For sure.
My skin doctor says it's it's like an Uber for cancer, an Uber Eats for cancer of my asshole, but he doesn't know anything because he's paid off by Western medicine, big pharma, shield, whatever.
I think some of the claims of the Nofap community seems to be like testosterone boosting and the social confidence. Having looked into some of the data on this, I can't really find any acute relationship between sexual abstinence and testosterone. I feel like it's all been driven by the kind of religious overhang of this stuff. But I would love to know where you think that this originally came from.
I think there's always an undercurrent of people ready to hear the message. And the message will come from various sources and have kind of groundswells over history. To paraphrase something Dr. Mike Stone, my mentor in the university, said, he's like, in his 70s, and he's like, I've seen core training come and go every 5 years as a fad for 50 fucking years. It's not new. It wasn't new in the 60s. It wasn't new in the 70s. It's not going to be new in 2025 when it comes back and everyone's like, what do you think about core training? It's like, wanting to train the abs isn't going anywhere, and there are some big influencers will pick it up and it'll, some weird exercise or some stupid TikTok video, and all of a sudden it'll be a thing. I think Nofap is similar in that there's always this relationship that people have to masturbation, which is for many people touch and go. And obviously, like, let's be honest, masturbation is like, it's not weird, but it's like, yeah, it's a very private thing, and it's a thing that is unnatural in the very technical sense of, obviously, the purpose of ejaculation in the strict evolutionary interpretation is to inseminate a consenting female, whereabout you have children with her as a result of that and raise them to maturation, and the cycle repeats itself. So, like jacking off, like definitely dumps off the sperm in a napkin, or, somewhere other place where it's not going to cause the procreation of life. So people deal with that realization in various different ways. And of course, a lot of people come from a religious context where masturbation in many religions is considered sinful or wrong. And I think a lot of people have some sort of a shame or guilt about engaging in that process. And that's understandable, because it's like, it's not something, if it's not something you can do in front of your family and friends, it's a special thing. And it's weird, right? It's like, if you, like nudists, for example, they're like, everyone should be naked all the time. Like, it's totally cool. Like, I don't ever want to see my mom naked, ever. And if I had to look at medical pictures of my mom naked, I'd be like, Jesus Christ, like, let's get this. Oh, good God, this is going to hurt me in a way. And it's not going to hurt me. It's just memories I don't want. And there's like something sexuality and stuff it's a big, like, Freudian, deep id, powerful thing. Actually, funny enough, I've tried the Nofap thing numerous times. What else do you do as a teen? Is you try shit like that, right? So, one time when I tried it, it was, just for context, fuck it, I'm done. Like, I'm just going to say, here's personal information incoming, whatever. I don't give a fuck. None of this shit fucking matters fundamentally to who you are as a human anyway. So
it's not being uploaded anywhere anyway, so.
Yeah, great. So, like, I typically jerk off, like, depending on whether this contest prep or off season, anywhere between once a day to, once every 3 days, on average. And it's just like that. That's my jerk off schedule. And that's like, regardless of if I'm with someone or not with someone. I mean, I'm married, and so that my marriage sexual interaction, I'd have to ask my wife if I have permission to talk about that. So I'll leave that private. I love it. It's quite great. I have zero complaints, but like, my masturbation frequency is essentially like rather static, regardless of, this has been for a very long time. So I've done the whole not jerk off for a week or almost 2 weeks ever since I started jerking off. And one time on day number 6, I had this unbelievably vivid dream of, I was standing in front of a volcano that was like gargantuan, and it was spewing out mile thick and tall columns of oil, like black, shiny oil, and car parts. And the car parts were falling, and oil was dripping like all around me. And it was the energy emanating from this thing. I knew in my dream, like, that was my id. That was my sex. It was like, just oil. Where's it coming from? And I'm like, oh shit. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta start jacking off again. I don't know where this thing is. Satan coming next? What the hell's going on? So there's a lot of shit there. It's not like this, like, oh, it's just you jack off or you don't. Like, no, I get it. There's some stuff there, and I can understand that in a certain context, a religious context, a context in which maybe you're ashamed of what you're doing, masturbation feels all wrong. Maybe the kind of stuff you have to think about, where your mind goes when you're jerking off, is stuff that you haven't really dealt with yet, that's unpalatable. Like, I'm into a ton of fantasies and fetish and like S&M. I love that fucking shit. I'm here all day for it. But I'm like, I have this contextualization in my head, like, like, fetish is fetish, and that's all good if everyone's consenting. And in my mind, there's no actual fucking people, so all is well. And I'm not like, I've never been ashamed of anything I've jerked off to. It was like not my proudest fap or whatever. Like, I don't have the capacity to be ashamed. Like, if you're ashamed of your own thoughts, you need to go see a psychologist right away. If you're ashamed of your actions, yeah, like, I've done shameful things, but thoughts, like, you have to understand, your mind has to be left to be a free place to think. Your thoughts, to quote Jared Feather again, you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are things emanated for you. You don't think them. Sometimes you can thought stream and think consciously, but you guys know, like, your thoughts come to you from the ether. There's like a GPT in your brain, almost literally, like a chat GPT that just generates all the time. Like, if you just sit there, like, okay, try not to think of anything, you're going to be thinking of shit. It's not you thinking of shit. It's just shit coming in. And if you have shame about that stuff, you got to recontextualize that to be like, I didn't choose to think about this. It's just the same way with masturbation. Like, if you have weird shit that you're masturbating to and you seem to love, like, You're all good, man. Lean into that shit. It's cool. Like, don't do anything crazy in public and take your dick out wagging at people. But like, that's two very, very different things. The shit on your head, you got to be cool with. And sorry, real quick, if you're not cool with it, I can totally see how masturbation and sex could be a real fucked up thing that you have to have a lot of reverence about and a lot of weird idiosyncrasies about.
So you've made a very important distinction there between the action and the judgment about the action, or the first and the second arrow. And that, yeah, as you say, like this is not to downplay the evolutionary power of sexual drive. Of course, like it's what's got us to where we are right now, and expressed nicely symbolically in that dream of the slightly psychedelic dream of the car parts and the volcano. but I think this stuff comes from like that's the engine of the hardware that exists in all humans. But my hypothesis, I guess, is that it's the same thing that's just gone through different flavors depending on what's culturally acceptable at the time. So the same as they say about like alien abduction, you know, that wasn't a thing more than 50 years ago because it wasn't in the human psyche. So originally it's the ancient kind of tantric traditions about conserving your chi and moving your sexual energy around, and then it becomes Christian and the sort of Catholic approach to no, you've got to ignore that, and then the energy comes out in other ways, and people end up doing naughty things in the church, and now it's like the current flavor, because everyone's much more scientifically grounded, so they think it's become more of a biohacking. Oh, it's a testosterone optimization thing, or it's a dopamine management thing. I mean, I think it's the same stuff that's just gone through different flavors. You know, I went to the Penn State prison last month. Fascinating.
I was going to say, this is going to be a fucking real interesting story. Like, I was there for 2 years, breaking and entering, nothing crazy. And let me tell you, I didn't jack off for 2 years straight.
Low grade stuff. But weirdly, it was an audio tour read out by Steve Buscemi, or the other guy that looks like Steve Buscemi. Everyone gets confused with him.
Yeah.
So
I don't want that man in my ear.
So there was a 20-year period where they tried to ban masturbation in the prison, and everyone's in solitary confinement, and they called it the Devil's Act. And it was like they went to extraordinary lengths to try and stop people masturbating in their jail cells on their own. And I just think that is a fascinating thing of like, it's no skin off your nose, figuratively speaking. And yet they're trying to like, the one saving grace that someone who's in prison on their own and with nothing to do has. And it's like, no, you can't even do that.
How do they try and stop them?
I imagine just like bursting in at random times. Oh, just better not be.
That's you, dog. Stop touching yourself.
So the first time I can remember ever heard it spoke about was in Mark Manson's first book called Models, that I know you've read, Yusuf. I don't know whether you've read it, Mike. It's like a take on like pickup artistry, but like
it's
more
the anti-pickup artistry book.
Yeah.
It's like,
boo.
It's more. It takes more of like a become the person that people would find attractive. So he spends a lot of time
game
about like
the pickup artists call that.
Eat vegetables, eat more protein, exercise, and then like masturbate less to fix the problem of like creating motivation to leave the house. So it's like that version of it. But the version of it in the Nofap community that I see is all this like the desire to create this subhuman productivity energy thing that's like an uninvestigated experience. I don't think anyone who actually goes through it experiences that. They experience like the opposite of being productive, and it feels pretty unpleasant.
Yeah.
Like, after like several days, right? Like a week feels pretty all-consuming and unpleasant.
That's the thing, is I think with maybe most things in biology, there's like a hermetic relationship where there's like a good middle ground you want to take. Like exercise is great, but if you overtrain, it's bad. If you undertrain, it's bad. Mm-hmm. You need enough food to sustain yourself, but if you eat too much food, you get fat. Not enough, you die. I think with sexual activity, if you get none of it and you don't jack off, your thoughts will be wholly consumed by sex.
Yeah.
And you will not be able to focus on work or anything else. And after you nut, there's a reason there's a term like post-nut clarity, because after you nut, you're like, oh shit, I'm me. Oh my God, who the fuck is this person with me? Good God, what the hell was I doing? And, men are notoriously prone to making terrible short-term, sometimes unfortunately long-term decisions when they're trying to get that ass. And the same thing can be the case. You just fucking whack off. All of a sudden, you're like, okay. One time I was like, oh man, I told one of my best friends, I really like this girl. And he's like, did you try to jack off yet? I was like, what? He's like, jack off, call me back, tell me if you still like her. And, in my case, it was like, yes, no, I actually do like her.
Sensible
post
friend.
jacking off. Very sensible. And it was like, because you could jack off and be like, oh, ugh. No, I was just trying to hit it. Because your brain is a big swirl of psychic energy, and it can confuse you. You can think, statistically, people estimate that attractive people are better at their work, are nicer. All this is almost certainly false. Maybe there's some marginal truth to it. But, when especially men who haven't been either whacking it or getting laid with a human being start to make decisions in that state, there's a lot of fucking decisions that are going to be wrong. There's a lot of drag on your mental ability to focus. On the other hand, if you are just jacking off all the time or fucking all the time, you also get nothing done. Like if I just had a harem of S&M strippers around, in my own personal case, I know how that would go for me. I would become insanely uninterested after a day and a half. But for many people, they get into that loop of the perseverative loop of this is amazing. I need more, I need more, I need more. It's like a junk food addiction. And then that's definitely a bad thing. So there's margins to this. It's not like, there are benefits to Nofap and there are downsides to Nofap, and where that line, it's really, to me, not a question of FAP versus no FAP. It's a question of how often are you ejaculating and what is the rate that for you seems to be a great balance for your sexual performance, for your health, and for your productivity and your psychic state. And for different people, that's going to be a different number, and that's totally okay.
I would like to add a caveat to that statement, Mike, as well. I'm sure you agree with this, that yes, there's the rate and everything, but I think if we go further upstream and we say what is also the motivation for it, because you've then identified a distinction between masturbation out of sexual drive, like pure sexual motivation, and masturbation out of compulsive dopamine plugging that could be replaced with any other habit like gambling or gaming or whatever else. And we certainly know that in this case of pathological fappers, there's studies on patients who are given dopamine agonists, and that increases the rate of compulsive masturbation, possibly suggesting that it's not associated with sex drive or hypersexuality per se. It's just a reward-seeking behavior that has taken the form of masturbation in that case. Whereas, so this is why I think we've got to be kind of careful with who is the audience that you're giving that particular advice to, because if there's a psychodynamic kind of drive behind just general pain avoidance and pleasure seeking, that's a different motivator than someone who's just horny.
Yeah. So the vast majority of people that masturbate because they're horny. But there are a group of people that will get especially into little mini spirals of masturbating perseveratively, and that is to sort of linked with that. Let's see, a good way to say it is the difference between wanting and liking. You can want to jack off, and after you do it, you're like, I didn't even like that much. And then half an hour later, you're like, I want to jack off again. And you have to remind yourself, I'm not going to like this. I definitely have times where I'm like, ooh, should I jack off to porn before I go to bed? And I'm like, the last time I jacked off, was it good? And I was like, no. And it's only been a day, so I'm not even that rebound horny yet. Fuck that. I'm not going to cost myself 20 minutes of lack of sleep. I'm going to bed. And then sometimes I won't take my own advice, and I'll just learn the lesson even better. So sometimes I'll fucking jack off, and after I nut, I'm like, God, that fucking blew. Because, not all nuts are the same. Sometimes you find some great shit, and you're like, fuck yeah, that was so worth it. That was amazing. And then sometimes you're like, really? This is almost stuff came out of my dick, but I kind of even barely feel anything. Obviously you felt the orgasm, but it was like, man, this really 20 minutes for this. And I sort of learned my lesson and just don't do it as frequently. And as sort of my, not new, but something I learned when I was in my maybe early 20s, late teens, a little heuristic that I mostly apply, but again, we're all fallible. Sometimes I don't apply it, is if I anticipate that it's going to be a great time, I do it. If I anticipate that it's just something ooh, I should do this, but it's not going to be a good time, then don't do it. I currently am struggling, actually, not with masturbation, but with engaging with comments on Instagram and YouTube. YouTube actually have an algorithm for it. I just go in and do a certain number of comments and get out. There's just too many comments to deal with. But on my social media like Instagram, I have a general tendency to do two things. One is I treat commenters as human beings. Like humans are talking to me, and it's rude to ignore people that are asking you questions. Like that's how I was raised, and genetically, that's just how I interact. And also, I'm like, I'm an expert. This is why they follow me. I can help people. So when they ask questions, like I just want to answer all the questions. And then I got to remind myself, like, I want to go in there and answer all the questions, but it won't be pleasant. It'll be a poor use of my time. So I just have to be like, oh, I made an Instagram post, and I'm not going to go into the comments. And sometimes that's really tough because I want to do it, but I don't like to do it. Sometimes I have to say no.
There's the three different processes of wanting, liking, and learning as being different. And I guess in that situation, you've outlined a couple of times where you've maybe ridden the line between them and been like, oh, actually, I wanted that, but I didn't quite like it. And I'm certainly driven by the same, like wanting to people please and wanting to respond to all the comments. And I don't want to be rude, and they've taken the time to comment, and I want to be able to help them. But actually knowing in my adult brain that even if I spent all day responding to comments, I'd never get to the bottom of it all. There's a great book by Emily, some Polish last name, I'm going to butcher it if I try and pronounce it, called Come As You Are. And it talks about this difference between wanting, learning, and liking in the context of sex drive. And there's a couple of interesting implications from it. One of them is that often women have predominantly responsive desire rather than spontaneous desire. And that means that they are more driven by liking than wanting. So you might have to have a sexual stimulus to generate the liking response, and then the learning that, oh yeah, this is nice. And so that produces this kind of dynamic in couples where the man is like, why am I always having to initiate? Like, you never want sex. And the woman's like, no, I love it when we have sex. But it just doesn't occur to her until someone provides her with a sexual stimulus. But then there's also the aspect of like, there's guilt associated with people who are sexually assaulted, that maybe they became physically aroused and they think, oh shit, like maybe I was somewhat to blame in that or whatever, but it's just the physiological response to that.
I guess the best way to think of Nofap is if it's a thing that's causing you some psychic distress, masturbation, and you have a clearly unhealthy relationship with it, either in your own head or it's affecting your life and work, it's definitely something to think about. And looking at how you use porn and how you're masturbating and how you have other sexual relations is a very good idea. And if that's you, it's definitely worth a think. But if you're looking at your own masturbation habits or porn habits and you're like, I don't know, it's just like I jack off when I think about titties, and when I feel good after and I feel like I'm relieved, and I go back to work for a few hours or days and then I jack off again, then you're totally good. And you're actually the vast majority of the population. Something like 95% of people that jack off are very much that's just totally doing that, like whatever. It's like people, it's the same relationship with almost everything else, like food, for example. There are people for whom, like, people with disordered eating, for whom meals are like this moral thing. Like, oh my God, what should I eat? But should it be healthy? But could be junk, maybe a little junk, like, but I'm guilty about the junk. Like, holy fuck, like that's a thing. Whereas for most people, it's like, I'm hungry, I have food, it's healthy or it's not, whatever, fuck it, I have food, and then I go back to work. Most people are in that second category with porn, with food, with whatever. And if you're in that category, don't let people on the internet tell you porn or jacking off or eating food is somehow inherently deleterious and inherently negative and inherently psychologically destroying you and preventing you from becoming a $500 billion an hour entrepreneur. That's all fucking bullshit. But if you struggle with masturbation addiction, pornography addiction, or just unhealthy habits, it's definitely something to talk to someone about. And there are absolutely ways that are you can catch some traction on that and help yourself, and just contextualize that for you there have to be limits and ways of approaching that are keep the thing healthy for you. And it's and you'll go through phases in life too, where sometimes you'll have less healthy relationships with it, and sometimes, and maybe for the rest of your life, you'll have a very healthy relationship with it. So a lot of nuance, and it's very individual dependent.
We're not great robots. Advice. Yeah, very much enjoyed that deep dive.
Did you just say robots?
I said we're not robots.
Oh, I thought you meant like sex robots are going to make all this great, which I totally agree with also. But that's another conversation.
Yeah, next episode, tune in for sex robots.
That can be we'll do AI coaching, RP app, sex robots.
I love it. So related. Guys, thank you so much for having me. It is always a sincere pleasure. And I'm not just saying that. It is always really fun.
Thanks for coming on.